Welcome to Thimbleberry U. I'm Michelle Odell, your host. And of course, I'm joined again by Amy Walls. And this episode, it's the Secure Act 2.0. Now, Amy, can you explain what the Secure Act 2.0 is and why are we talking about it?
Absolutely. So, Michelle, let me take a step back just a couple years. In late 2019, the first Secure Act, now I think we could dub it Secure Act 1.0, passed. And the changes in the first Secure Act were the largest changes to retirement planning since 2006. That legislation changed the age at which individuals must withdraw money from certain kinds of retirement accounts. And it changed rules around inheriting an IRA, Roth IRA, employer-sponsored plan, et cetera. It was big, is my point.
Okay.
So Secure Act 2.0 basically builds further on those changes. It's specifically making changes to Roth accounts, contribution limits, and employer plans. And then it further changes the required minimum distribution ages of the original Secure Act, which had also changed the required minimum distribution ages.
So RMD, required minimum distribution. Now, you mentioned that's changing. Can you explain the change?
Yes, it's very important. This is probably the biggest thing people close to retirement or in retirement need to know about the legislation. So age 72 has been the required minimum distribution start age since 2020, when the first Secure Act went into place. And it's going to remain age 72 for anyone born in 1950 or earlier. Okay, so we can see those folks have already, because they've reached 72, met that age. So those folks already last year would have needed to take their first distribution. But here's the thing about distributions. The age at which it is determined you are supposed to start does not necessarily mean you have to take the distribution that year. You're actually given till April 1st of the year following you attain that age. So those folks that met the age last year actually have until April 1st of 2023 to take that distribution. Now, in addition, they will have their 2023 distribution to take. Okay, and in all the examples we're talking about, that stays the same. You have the age you are now required, but you get for the first year till April 1st. The rest of the time, you have to take it by December 31st. And since I just said you have to take it by December 31st, I think that implies there's a consequence.
Right.
And there is. In the past, not taking your distribution results in a 50% tax on the shortfall. Under this new legislation, the Secure Act 2.0, that shortfall is now taxed at 25%, and it can be reduced to 10% if you remedy the situation in a timely manner. So there is some good news in that, like they're delaying it. That's good for a lot of folks. And the penalties aren't as big if you make an error. What are the right ages? They've added 2 more tiers on. And I'd expect that we get some more change on this. But if someone is born between 1951 and 1959, they need to start their RMDs at age 73. Okay, the year in which they attain age 73 is their start year. Again, they can wait till April 1st of the following year to have taken that, have to have taken it by then. But the second group is anyone born after 1960, and that age is 75. So there is a little bit of confusion because this did get pulled, the Secure Act, and this language in the Secure Act got pulled from other bills, and there is a typo. So if you were born in 1959, you're actually written into both the age 73 and the age 75 group the way the legislation went through. But experts in the know, I don't have connections with the people who, the intentions, are saying that the intention was that they'd be in the age 73 group, which makes sense anyway, because when it comes to a penalty, you need to err on the cautionary side, and it makes sense for someone in that group, if it's not clarified further, to plan on age 73.
All right. So we've all heard about Roth accounts. What are the big changes with those?
Interestingly enough, and a lot of people don't realize this, up until now, Roth accounts in an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k or a 403b have had different rules than a Roth IRA. think the general assumption is they have the same rules. They don't. And I have a whole podcast on that one that now isn't valid because, for example, previously, a Roth IRA did not have required minimum distributions, but a Roth 401k or a Roth 403b did. So now those employer plans have the same rules as a Roth IRA, meaning no required minimum distributions unless it's inherited. Okay, that's an important piece to note. If it's your personal account you've been contributing to, no RMD on the Roth side of those employer plans. So I think that's a great move for folks wanting to contribute there. Now, to further talk about this, let me explain how, and I'll use a 401k for example, how these accounts have both traditional and Roth sides. So basically, if you think about it as one big bucket, your 401k is one big bucket. It always has inside of it a smaller bucket where pre-tax money can go. Okay, so when you put that money in, up to $22,500 in 2023, if under 50, 30,000, if over 50, it goes into that pre-tax side. Your salary is reduced, so now your tax bill is reduced on your paycheck.
Right.
Okay. When an employer adopts Roth provisions on a plan like this, and they have to adopt it, it's not automatic. They have to say, hey, we want to put this on. Then you get a second bucket inside that big bucket.
Okay.
And that bucket is the Roth bucket of the 401k. So as an employee, you have a choice when that's adopted. Do I want to contribute pre-tax? I'm lowering my income today and getting taxed less. Or do I want to contribute post-tax and tax-free for the future into the Roth side? It's a choice. The employer match has always gone to the pre-tax side, no matter which you choose. Okay. And those limits stand so you could split it 50-50 between the two for the employee contribution. Okay, so that's important to note. So that's been in 401ks, 403bs, some 457 plans. But now as a result of the Secure Act 2.0, SEP-IRAs and SIMPLE IRAs can now have a Roth side. Previously, they couldn't. So for small business owners, that's a great thing. It's a new option that's available. I also mentioned, and I know this gets a little meaty, the employer contributions went to the pre-tax side. They were always pre-tax. Well, now there is an option that they can go to the Roth side. But there's a catch on this one. And that is that the employee will be taxed on those employer contributions. It's not a freebie. Okay. There is a consequence. Okay. And that makes sense because it's money just landing where it will never be taxed again. And the employer does get a deduction for contributing. So the other thing with Roths that changed, and this one's pretty narrow in scope, but it creates a unique planning opportunity for some folks, is that money in a 529 plan, which is for education, can be transferred in specific situations, certain amounts, definitely rules to be followed, into a Roth IRA. You definitely want to look heavily into this, work with an advisor, because there are specifics on this. And if you think, hey, my parents have this 529 plan for me, or they transferred the ownership of my old 529 plan to me, it has extra money in it, you may want to be looking at that sooner rather than later, because there are some time frames on how long the account has to be open, that sort of thing.
Okay, so what is changing with contribution limits?
Yeah, I'll talk about this from the vantage point of being an advisor. Like, how it works now is we don't find out until November or so if IRA contribution limits are going up. When they're 6,500, are they going to 7,000? Usually they only increase by $500. We can pretty much count on employer-sponsored plans like the 401k, 403b, 457 going up because they're bigger amounts. But with the IRAs, that's hard. So now the annual contribution increases will be based on inflation. And so we know they will go up each year, and that can just be a little bit more predictable, even though we won't know what the inflation amount is.
Are there any big changes to be aware of?
I think there are just a couple more. Really, two things come to mind. Small businesses are being incentivized to offer a 401k. So that's great for employees of a small business. And so if you're listening and you do work for a small business, let the employer know, because they may not know that they're being incentivized to offer that now. The other one, which I think is really a benefit, much like IRA contribution limits and some of the things about Roths for our younger clients and younger listeners, is that employers can now make student loan payments for employees in lieu of matching retirement plan contributions. So for those folks trying to get those student loans paid off, you may want to reach out to your employer and find out when that will be available.
Well, Amy, that was great information. If people have any questions, how can they get a hold of you?
They can give us a call at 503-610-6510 or find us online at thimbleberryfinancial.com.
And we'll talk in a couple of weeks.
Sounds great. Thanks, Michelle.
Registered representative securities offered through Cambridge Research, Inc., a broker-dealer. Member FNIRA, SIPC. Investment advisor representative, Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated.